Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Anna, and I'm with the New Mexico Small Business Development Center. Today, we have Eddy Mindlin joining us, who is a SCORE mentor and outreach coordinator. Eddy is an author, public speaker, and sales coach, and will be presenting 3 steps to attracting and retaining customers. We will be using the Q&A function to take questions and welcome attendee participation, so don't hesitate to ask us any questions you may have. We'll answer questions at the end of the webinar. And then, Eddy, if you wouldn't mind proceeding to the next slide and the one after that. Perfect. Thank you so much. And actually, the one after that. Appreciate it. This slide features some COVID-19 business resource links, which I won't go over in detail, as we'll send you a copy of the presentation at the end of the webinar. Please visit our website at nmsbdc.org to view our upcoming no-cost webinars or to sign up for our no-cost counseling services. I'll also send a follow-up email through to you with this information. I will chat that through to you as well, so no need to write anything down. And thanks so much for joining us. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Eddy.
Thank you, Anna. And here's the next slide. It's okay. So welcome everyone in Zoom land out there. These are always interesting because you guys can see me and I can't see you, so it's always interesting doing this. But I do appreciate you guys coming on. And as Anna said, I'm a volunteer with SCORE, so I do this because I enjoy helping and assisting people. I am a sales professional and a sales coach, and I've made just about every mistake in the book during my career. And so my goal with doing all the talks through SBDC and the mentoring through SCORE is to make it so that all of you on this call today and everybody I ever work with hopefully makes fewer mistakes and has success earlier. So there's always bumps in the road, but my goal is to help you guys. So I'm pretty down to earth kind of person. I'm going to give you some concrete things today that I think will really help you in your business, in the sales world, whether you yourself are a salesperson or you are a manager or an owner of a business. That's my goal. So again, my only goal is that when this is over in an hour, is that each of you leave and say, wow, I got some good information, I took some notes, and I got some things that can really help me. So that's my goal. So in this first slide, we're going to talk about practice and preparation. The gentleman on the left, most of you probably know, is Peyton Manning, who was a great quarterback for many years in the NFL. The lady on the right is a lady named Pat Summitt, that was a great basketball player and then one of the best coaches ever at the University of Tennessee. And in my book, I have quotes from each of these people that I want to read to you, because in my coaching and my mentoring with people like you guys, I use sports as an analogy a lot because everybody can relate to sports and knows something about sports. And there's so much that has to do the things that sports, that athletes do and famous people that salespeople should do as well. So, and practice and preparation is absolutely critical for anything going on with business and with sales, that you practice what you're going to say, what you're going to do, you prepare for what you're going to do. So the quote I have from Peyton is, I never left the field feeling I could have done more to prepare, and that always gave me peace of mind. So anybody that knows Peyton Manning knows that he won, the majority of his games. But when he did not win, or when he did not perform, or his team did not perform up to their as good as he wanted them to, he knew that they had prepared the best they could. And that's really all we can do in sales as well, is we prepare for each prospect, for each client that we're going to talk to, for anything we're going to send them, for anything we're going to show them. We prepare. Now, Pat Summitt's quote is, most people get excited about the games, but I have to get excited about practice because that's my classroom. So she, as a coach, is talking about teaching and practicing. And it's the same thing in sales. And I can't emphasize this enough. Most salespeople, and by the way, all these things I'm going to tell you over the next 40 minutes or so before Q&A, most people will do probably none of these things, and some people will do maybe one or two. So if you do 3 or 4 or 5 of these things, you're going to be ahead of the game and ahead of your competitors. So again, practicing and preparing is so important for sales as it is in sports. I'm going to talk to you guys about the art of selling. Now, everyone knows that to be a doctor or to be a scientist or an engineer or things like that, there are codes that you have to meet. There are certain practices that you have to follow. But a lot of people think, well, sales is not that way. You just take a product out and show it or talk about your service and that's it. But I'm going to tell you that's not true. There's an art to selling, and that's what I hope to convey to you guys today. It's important to have a coach, and it's important to have an ongoing coach and an ongoing relationship with your coach for the reason that we cannot see what we're doing wrong. And that has to do with any sport. If you take anybody who's an actor, if you take anybody in this world that makes a lot of money, I can pretty much guarantee you that they all have ongoing coaching, and they love it because they like making a lot of money. They like being the best actor. They like being the best baseball player, swimmer, whatever. So you guys are taking a good step here by coming to this webinar, and I hope you'll do these kind of things on a regular basis, and either through SBDC or SCORE or whatever, is seek out mentors. And I highly suggest that people have more than one. Actually, I've found that this is better over the long haul, is to have more than one person that you can confide in and talk to bounce ideas off of, because we all need support in this crazy world we live in. So the goal here is to make sales go up. We also want to retain clients. A lot of people talk to me and they think I'm just going to help them add new customers, which of course I do and I can. But retaining the clients you already have is absolutely the priority over adding any new customers. So you need to go through your database and know who your ongoing customers are. Make sure that you're keeping them happy, because you don't want to lose any customers. And it's very well known that the money and the energy, both physical and psychological, that you're going to spend trying to get new customers is way more than keeping the current customers you have happy. So some people, they have 10 customers and they're in a race to get 20 customers, and then they stop taking great care of those first 10. And you don't want to do that, because you absolutely don't want to lose any existing customers. So you guys have already taken action by signing up for this webinar and investing in yourself. And when I say invest, I don't necessarily mean financially. This is a free webinar for you guys. I think sometimes, you have to pay a little bit of money, maybe to hire a professional to help you one-on-one in your business. And I think that's a good thing, to have professionals to help you. But you do have to take action and be willing to work on yourself and work on your business. So this is a bunch of salespeople kind of thinking about what's next. So I'm going to, as Anna said, I'm going to talk to you specifically about 3 main areas today. And the first one is organizing and organizational skills. And I don't see any way around this. I think people that are not organized don't know what they're doing today, don't know what they're doing this afternoon, don't know what they're doing tomorrow. I don't know how they can succeed in sales. So you have to be organized. And on all these things I'm going to talk about over the next several minutes, I'm going to tell you how I specifically did things. Now, in no way am I trying to tell you what to do or how to do anything. That would be wrong of me, and I would never do that. My goal is to get your brain working and thinking, wow, this is how Eddy was successful in my business, which by the way I was what's called a manufacturer's representative. So I represented companies that make floor covering products like carpet, tile, wood flooring. I primarily worked on the commercial side with architects, with interior designers, building owners, building managers, and things like that. And so I am extremely organized, and I want to tell you how I did things. But again, please understand, I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it. I want each of you to come up with your own system. So I just wanted to preface my comments with that. So the way I kept track of things is 2 stacks of projects. Now, I did things on pieces of paper, which I'm sure a lot of you are a lot younger than I am, and I think that's interesting to say the least, because you'll do it on the computer. That's fine, no problem. So when I worked by the project. So what I mean by that is when an architect was going to, I knew was designing a school, let's say, I would write down the architect's name, the name of the school, and then I would ask that architect, when will you be at the point where you'll be ready to pick out floor covering? And they would tell me, and I would put that down. So I would let them know that I was interested in working with them, and then I would get back with them at the appropriate time. So on these pieces of paper, I had, like I say, 2 stacks of projects. And in the top right corner, I wrote the follow-up date when I was going to get back with that person. And so this top stack of projects were all the projects that I was going to follow up on and work on the month of October 21, which is now. And so the bottom stack of projects is projects I'm going to follow up on November of 21 through, the rest of my career, basically. And literally some projects, were a year out. Now, what I would do at the end of each week is I would take out the top stack of projects and I would go through them, because those are all the ones I'm going to work on in October. So, and then you guys have probably heard about the funnel system. And this is basically what I'm doing is I'm funneling down which projects I'm going to work on and when. So let's just make this math easy. And let's just say I have, 8 projects that I'm going to work on for the month of October, and there's 4 weeks. Well, that's 2 per week. So then I would put 2 of them in what I call my weekly to-do folder, which was just a manila folder opened up. And on the left side, I would put these pieces of paper that had to do with the projects I was going to follow up on. On the right side of the paper was a notebook, a piece of notebook paper. And then I would list the name of the project, or I would say, call John or call Sue or whatever regarding X project. And then I would have the correlating information on that piece of paper. So I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of how I organized myself. Now the bottom stack I would take out at the end of every month. So, and I'm retired, by the way, so I don't still do this, although I do it still with my personal things. So you would take out the stack of projects that are November through the end of time. And then you would, then you would go through those at the end of October. You would say, okay, these are the ones that I need to follow up on in November. And then you would move those to the top stack. So I hope that makes sense, the process that I use. And then I would keep repeating that process so that every week I'm pulling out the projects and reviewing the current projects. But the nice thing about sales and the way I had my system set up is I always had things to work on. I always had projects to work on. So if somebody told me, Eddie, get back with me in February of 22, that's okay, because I'll be around in February 22, and I'll take that out and I'll be following up with them then. I had a calendar, actually paper calendar, and those were things for going out and seeing people in person. So I would put that information on the calendar. The weekly to-dos is pretty much what I just described to you guys. That was the manila envelope, the manila folder that opened up, and that was the things that I was going to actually do that week. Then I had a database, and I was so naive when I started my own business, which was in 1988. I didn't know anything about databases, but I hired somebody to help me with that, which is another key component of being good at sales and good at anything, is know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. And believe me, there's a lot more things that we're not good at than what we are good at. So stay in your lane, meaning if sales is your deal and maybe one or two other things, do that. But get other people in your company, or if you work by yourself, hire people to help you with marketing, or get a database set up if you don't know how to do that. So it's a smart thing to do. But I could quickly find people's phone numbers and their information through the database. Planning at night or on the weekends is a very important thing to do, because you've got to be organized, which this whole topic is on. And if you during the week at 10 in the morning on Monday, you're thinking, well, what am I going to do this week? Well, that's not good. You want to know what you're going to do. And so do your planning in non-business hours. I had a list of ABC clients. And what I mean by that is clients were either A, B, or C. Now, most people think the A clients were the most important, or sometimes the largest. Actually, the A clients oftentimes were not the largest, but the key thing I want you to know about the A clients is there was mutual trust between myself and my clients. They appreciated what I did for them as a professional salesperson, and I appreciated the way they worked with me, and of course the orders they placed with me. And we treated each other with respect. And this is a big thing, because people in sales, and just in life, there's a lot of people that don't treat other people with respect and professionally. And so that person would never be an A client. I don't care how much they buy, if they're, well, let's just say if they're jerks, they're mean, they're not friendly people, they're not going to be an A client. So think of your A clients as your best, most professional business relationships, where it's good for both sides and it's a good relationship. The B clients, of course, are the majority of the clients. They buy a fair amount, they buy over a period of time, they continue to be clients, but you don't quite have that relationship you do with the A clients. The C clients are normally transactional, meaning they buy once a year, or they bought once in a while, but try to have a categories for your clients so you know. And the other thing I would say about this ABC is I would absolutely tell your clients, most of them, not all of them, but where they are in your list. And so somebody who's an A client, you say to them, you're one of my best clients, you're one of my A clients, I really appreciate that. It goes a long way when you actually tell somebody that you appreciate them and that they're one of your most important clients. Now, if they're a B or C client, you say, you're a very important client to me, and I would like for us, and here's how you have to phrase it. You have to say, I would like for us to be more important to each other. You can't go to a client and say, hey, buy more from me. That's not going to be very beneficial. But if you turn it around and say, what can I do to be a better salesperson so that you will purchase more from me and we can have a better business relationship, that is the way to do it. Being efficient, which is a lot of what these things I've already talked about are all about, is don't waste your time. Do things that are efficient and get the job done. One of the best compliments I used to get fairly often, not at the beginning of my career, but towards the middle and the end, is, Eddie, you don't seem to work that much. Because I play golf in the afternoon, go to the gym, things like that. And they knew that. Some of my better customers knew that. But the reason is because I was so organized that it was a well-greased, wheel, if you will. And so it just kept going. I had this system. And that's the key thing I want to impress on you guys, is you need to have a system that works for you. I don't care what your system is. As long as you like it and you embrace it, then that's wonderful. Now, at the beginning of my career, like almost any entrepreneur, I worked my rear end off for years. But then I got to the point where it was kind of, I don't want to say automatic pilot, but kind of, because I had this system so well set up. The next area I want to talk to you is about follow-up. And of course, follow-up and organization, they kind of go together. But here's some specific things that I've learned, is don't try to guess when somebody wants you to get back with them with the product, for the product or service you're selling. And so just ask them. I learned this the hard way. Again, like I said 20 minutes ago, I learned a lot of things by making mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes, and I'm hoping that you'll make fewer mistakes. So just say to the prospect or the customer, I really appreciate your time today, learning about my product, or I appreciate the business. I want to stay in touch with you. When would you like me to follow up with you? And the reality is, you don't care what they say. If they say next week, fine. If they say 6 months, fine. And respect what they say, because that's when they want you to get back with them. Now, if somebody says, get back with me next March, and you say, okay, that's fine, I look forward to talking to you then, well, maybe in a couple of months, you can send them an email and just say, hey, I enjoyed getting together with you in October. I look forward to getting together with you in March, as you suggested when we spoke last. And then when you contact them again in March, because you've got your notes, you're so well organized, you say, when we met in October, you suggested I get back with you in March, and it's now March, so I just wanted to see when you would like to get together. They're much less likely to be irritated with you as, being a pushy salesperson or something like that, which, believe me, I've, failed in those kind of things and made those mistakes. And I don't want you guys to do that. So when you're getting back with them at the time they request, you're doing exactly what they've asked, and they're going to be most likely be very impressed that, wow, I did ask you to get back with me in March, and you're doing that. And they're going to look at you as a professional salesperson. Staying in touch with everyone is really important. And this is where growing your database and growing, when you follow up with people, even if they never buy from you. And let me emphasize that there are some people that will never buy from you, but they're just good people, and they're good sources of leads for you. So they may know people every year that could possibly purchase the product or service you're selling, and they like you and they want to help you make money, but they will never themselves buy the product. So don't discount anybody. There were 2 times when I would basically get rid of people off of my database. One is if they just said, look, Eddie, I really appreciate you staying in touch with me, but at this point in my life, I really don't think I'm ever going to be able to help you or buy from you. So, I think it'd be best for you not to follow up with me. And you have to respect that. The other thing is, if people are mean to you, if they're dishonest, anything like that, you don't need them. Life's too short. You don't need those kinds of people. But literally, as far as I know, everyone else, stay in touch with. Be one step ahead of the client. What I mean by that is, by keeping your notes, know what you've talked about the last 2 times, the last 10 times you've seen them. And then before the next appointment, anything you think about that you want to talk to that person about, write it down, so that going into that next appointment, these are the 3 things I want to discuss. I think it's kind of silly to just call up somebody and just say, hi, I just want to touch base with you. Have something you want to tell them about the product or service you sell, or something you discussed with them last time. They said to you, can you get me more information on this? Another thing is, and I'll use an example from my business, is flooring. So if a shipment of carpet was supposed to come in this coming Friday, and I would do my job by calling the carpet manufacturer on Monday and make sure everything's shipping on time, and of course sometimes there's a problem, is tell the client right away. Don't wait until it's too late to call them. They're not going to be happy anyway if something is late, a shipment's late, anything like that. But you want to be proactive, and you want to tell them what's going on and keep them advised. One of the worst things I think a salesperson can do is to receive phone calls from prospects or clients saying, hey, what's going on with this, or what's going on with that? I mean, they literally should not have to call you very often, if at all, because you should be so proactive that you know exactly what's going on and keep them posted on everything, because they have a million other things to do. To be prepared, I mean, that's kind of what we talked about already. Being prepared like Peyton Manning and Pat Summitt talked about, is know what you're going to talk about next time. What is the purpose of the phone call? What is the purpose of sending them an email? It's not just to say hi. Give them some information about your product or service. Tell them something that can help them. I'm going to talk about the 20-80 rule and the 80-20 rule. Most of you know that the 80-20 rule is that 80% of your business will come from 20% of your clients. And that's pretty universal. So, if you have 100 clients, 80% of your income, and let's face it, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to have fun and make money. So 80% of your income is going to come from 20 clients, approximately. So the point of that is focus, obviously, number one, on those people. Now, the inverse, what I want to talk to you about, I found with salespeople, basically is 80% of the things that salespeople do, and probably people in most businesses do, are a waste of time. Now, you may not know what's a waste of time. So try to think about the things you do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and make a list of them. Maybe talk to a coworker, talk to a friend, talk to me, talk to somebody at SBDC, and find out what are the things I'm doing that really aren't paying dividends. And if they're not working, if it's something you're doing that is not benefiting you, then don't do it. I want to tell you about a big project I sold by simply staying in touch. And this is the point number 2 on this list, is stay in touch with everyone. So I told you that I worked with architects a lot. And I had worked with this one specific architect for, I'm going to say 10 years, and had made a little bit of money working with him, but not a lot. Well, I kept going to see him, and sometimes he wasn't there, and I would literally just talk to his receptionist and show the receptionist the new products that I had to offer, and keeping them informed. That's what I was doing. And education is a big part of selling, because you know way more about the product or service you're selling than probably 99% of your customers. So what you want to do is educate them every time you see them. Okay, so this architect calls me out of the blue and says, Eddie, I have this big project that I'm doing. I'm remodeling a building for a client, and I would like you to handle all the flooring. So the short story is I ended up with the project. I did very well. The client, I treated them very fairly. I made good money. Everything worked out great. And the only reason I got this project is because that architect trusted me. And I wanted to emphasize that so much to you, that you guys as salespeople, trust is so huge, that you keep showing up. You keep showing up. You keep giving them information. Most salespeople do not do that. Okay, now I'm going to talk about our brains, which I love, the psychology of selling, which is fascinating. And number 1 is we have to work on ourselves, because we have to figure out what do we do that's good and what do we do that's bad, kind of like I talked about a few minutes ago. But now I'm talking about more behavioral types of things. For example, do we talk too much, like I used to do? Do we interrupt? Do we tap our foot on the floor, and because we're a little bit nervous or we're not aware of it, we're in a meeting? These are the kinds of things that you have to be aware of, and you might want to consult with a good friend or a family member and maybe do a mock presentation or something and find out, get honest feedback on how you come across to other people. Well, then the next thing is to try to work on each client. And when I say work on them, I don't mean change them. You're never going to change anybody in this world. We know that. We can only work on ourselves. But what you need to understand is the psychology of each of your prospects and your clients. How much time do they want to spend with you when you go visit with them? Do they just want a couple minutes, or do they really want to spend an hour with you to learn everything? So you have to tailor your approach to each person, and that's the point of this. Again, how much do you talk? Do you talk too loud? Always when I The reason that I talk a little bit softer, because my tendency is to talk too loud. And by the way, I dealt with a lot of people in my business that were, you could say introverts, quiet people. So I had to learn to talk softer. Are you smiling? And speaking of smiling, even when you're on the phone, people can tell whether you're smiling or not. So I work on this all the time too, but it's something you should work on, is maybe put a mirror or something on your desk or wherever, or write yourself a note to smile, because people can absolutely tell whether you are smiling or not by the tone of your voice. Be aware of your body movements. Eye contact. It's really important to look people in the eye. It's important to listen and hear. Now, let me differentiate that. We all hear sounds all the time. Right now, if I were to stop talking, you'd hear noises in your house or your business or wherever you are. But how well do we really listen? And that's the key, is really listening and really paying attention. And there's whole people that help people with this. I mean, one thing I've learned is when somebody is talking, I literally say the words that they're saying silently to myself in my head, so that in a way I'm hearing it verbally, and then I'm saying each word to myself, and it makes me absolutely focus on what they're doing. So listening, you talk about an art of selling, there is an absolute art to being a great listener. Speaking of that, the best listeners are the most well-liked people in our society. And the reason is, excuse me, is because it shows you are taking an interest in another person. And that's what people want. People want to be listened to. In our crazy society we live in, everybody's in a hurry. And if you take the time to really listen and really focus on your client, your prospect, works just as well with, in family situations too. Try to be a really good listener, and you absolutely will be more well-liked. And listening without the intent to respond. We are not a reporter on TV. We're not interviewing somebody for TV or radio where we've got 10 questions listed we're going to go through. No, we kind of wing it. We kind of have an idea of what we want to discuss with that person, but we really want to just listen, and don't think about what's my next question. It's okay to have some dead space between the time they stop talking and you start talking. Taking notes is something that's really helped me. I guess I probably always taken some notes, but I take a lot more notes now. And what does that do? It helps me keep my mouth shut. So, because I used to talk too much, okay? That's just being honest with you. So you guys have some things you do that you probably need to work on. So I talk too much. So now I take notes. And what does that do when you take notes? And even if somebody's talking about whatever, something that they have a dog or something, you write it down, because that's an important thing to know about the prospect. You want to be more than just a salesperson. You want to be kind of a business buddy where you know something a little bit, not personal, but about that person. Do they like to cook? Do they have animals? Do they like to travel? And if you write these things down, it's going to help you. Now, this next thing is much more powerful in person, but over this Zoom, I'll try to do it. So in person, I have someone come up to the front of the room, and I stand about 10 feet apart from them, and we're facing each other. And I say, let's pretend that we work at the same company, and we're saying hi to each other in the hall as we pass each other. So we start walking towards each other, and I say hi, and they say hi. Well, then I say, okay, let's do it again. And so I walk towards the person, and they say hi, and I say, hey, how you doing? And I put my hand up like this, and I say, I know you weren't here last week, or I know, you had a family member sick. Please tell me how you're doing. Okay, what does that do? That shows that I care about that person, as opposed to, I'm just saying hi to a coworker in the hall, or I'm just saying hi to a prospect. And so when you try to know things about your prospects or your clients, it really helps, and it really comes across that you are more than just a salesperson. You're somebody that really cares about them. Okay, now we're going to talk about communication, which is really a subset of psychology. and this statistic always blows my mind, 55% of communication is nonverbal. Hand movements, gestures. 38% is the tone of voice. And only 7% of what we say is the communication, which is pretty wild when you think about this. So the point to you guys is think about your nonverbal movements. You know, are you looking at them? You know, are you scratching your head? Are you, you know, tapping your foot? All these kinds of things. The tone of voice. This is very powerful. So I have specifically learned to talk softer. Maybe I'm not doing such a good job today on this, but I usually am pretty good at that. I used to click my pen because I was nervous sometimes in meetings, but I am very cognizant now of my body movements and what I am doing when I am talking to someone else, and then taking notes. The words "please tell me" are very powerful. We talked a little bit ago about trying to guess when you should get back with someone. So I have started to use the words "please tell me," and I've even added to that, "will you please tell me?" And I use this every day in emails, text, face-to-face, you know, with anybody I'm doing work with for SBDC, SCORE, my family. And it's very good because if I say to any of you, "will you please tell me about yourself?" Most of you, hopefully all of you, you know, that's not an invasive question. They're like, okay, he just wants to know something about me. I'm not asking anything personal. So as opposed to if I would just say, "tell me about yourself," that comes across, and this is where the psychology comes in. That's like an order. If I say, "tell me about yourself," and you're like, "no, I don't want to tell you about myself." But if I say, "will you please," and so I do it all the time with people, "will you please email me back so I know you received this email? Will you please let me know what day next week is good to meet?" So literally the words "will you please tell me" are very useful words. The word "so that" or the word "because" will help you state the benefit. So in sales, there's features of every product or service, and then there's benefits. And the thing that's really important is, how does this benefit the client? So I'm not a car person. So if a car salesperson is trying to tell me all about the motor and a lot of technical stuff, it's going to go over my head, and I'm not really interested in that. But if he or she says, "well, it has this kind of motor, Eddie, and it's going to help you because of this," then I'm going to be interested. So let me just give you a couple examples. I kind of just did with the car is, you guys should buy this car because it's the safest car on the market, because you know, it has a wonderful steering wheel that moves up and down. But you say the word "because," again, helps you as the salesperson state the benefit. You should buy this car so that your whole family will easily be able to fit into this car, and it'll be very comfortable. So those are just kind of words to help you think about the benefits when you're talking about your product or your service. Now, I know how to juggle. I'm not a professional juggler, but I'm not going to do it now because it's a little weird on Zoom. But when I do presentations in person, I do juggle. That gives me confidence. I know how to juggle. And what I'm going to suggest you guys do is think about something that you can do. Let me get to this next slide here, because where you have a demonstration about your product or service. Because a presentation without a demonstration is just conversation. So where does that get you? If I'm trying to sell you carpet and I'm just telling you about it, and I'm not showing you something, I'm not demonstrating, I'm not putting carpet samples on the table or in your hand so you can touch them and look at them. So that's what needs to be done. Now, going up just before, line before, the passion, fun, profit is, I'm hoping that you guys see the passion I have as a volunteer wanting to help you guys. Okay, so in my whole career selling flooring, I was passionate about it. I was excited about it. I should not every day. There were some days that weren't so great. We all have those. But mostly I was passionate. I was excited. What did that lead to? It led to me having fun most days and at most appointments, which turned into profit. So the point I want to make to each of you is it's hard to sell something you're not excited about. So have excitement and passion in your voice, in your energy. That leads to fun, which we all want to have fun every day. And before you know it, you're making money. So again, think about with the next one, the presentation without a demonstration, is think about some way that you can demonstrate in a fun way the product or service that you sell, because you'll be more memorable. So when I juggle, I'm doing a class or teaching people, in a room, and I juggle, I can guarantee you they are all going to remember that. And you want to be memorable. You want to be more memorable than your competitors. Okay, this is the last slide, and then we'll get to Q&A. And I talk about Philmont Scout Ranch, which is in the northern part of New Mexico. I grew up in Kansas City, and when I was 14 years old, I became an Eagle Scout, and with a bunch of other guys that came out to New Mexico to hike in the mountains of New Mexico. Now, in the parentheses, it says scrawny kid survives, because I was a skinny 14-year-old kid. Okay, so I was not your quote normal rough and tumble 14, 15, 16-year-old boy. Okay, that's just the way it was. I'm not embarrassed about that. So climbing those mountains and all the things, adventures that we had to do and some unexpected things, a lot of them were harder for me than the average person. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I draw on experiences. Well, let me start over. We all get scared about things. We all think, can I really do this? Can I make that sales call? Can I start this business? So I'm suggesting that you think back to when you were 14 years old or 20 or 30 or whatever age, and think about things that you have overcome in your life. Everybody has overcome hardship. Okay. So it gives you confidence. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you today, is that and people say, oh, Eddie, I can't believe you get scared. You're so outgoing. You're not scared to talk to anybody. Okay, I do get scared. Okay, maybe not as much as every other people, but I get afraid sometimes, and I'm being just perfectly honest with you guys. So I reach back and I think, wow, okay, I did this when I was 14 years old. When I was 25 years old, this tragedy happened in my life. It was horrible, and I overcame it. I had this hard time in business. I overcame that. It's like, wow, I can overcome this. And that's what I want you guys to think of as well. So this is just reviewing. So we talked about 3 main tips. We talked about you've got to be organized. You've got to know what you're doing. Again, like I said before, if you do some of these things I've talked about today, you will be way ahead of your competitors. So you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to follow up with everybody, and you've got to ask them when is the right time to follow up. Psychology, you've got to be aware of how you come across, things that you can work on, and then work to try to understand and relate to each of your customers, and then the communication skills that we talked about. So Anna, we're ready for Q&A.
Had a little bit of an issue with the mute button there. Sorry about that. I
Okay.
don't see anything in the Q&A. Please don't hesitate to ask us any questions. We love questions around here. It looks like someone has raised their hand. So what I'm actually going to do, I don't know if that was on mistake or not, an accident or not, but I'm going to allow you to talk, and feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like to. All right.
Okay, my name is Todd. Nice job today, Eddie. I really appreciate the presentation. And my question is, I've owned a couple of businesses in the past, but I'm starting something new. And this is a service-based business where the primary things that I'm selling are my time and my knowledge. And so I feel like I'm in the proof of concept stage. And what's the best way to know how much to give away for free, or how to build your first level of interest in your business?
Okay, good question, Todd, and thank you for asking that. And that does come up quite a bit. And education is very powerful. And so and also again, I don't know what your service is, but I'm assuming that each client is probably going to have a little bit different needs. So I'm sure there's generic things that you can talk about, because what you want to do, Todd, is you want to build the trust, like I said, with people. So if there's a way on the computer or in person, wherever you live or work, that you can set up times, or even if it's one-on-one, even if it's prospects you're talking to, and go give them some information. It's kind of like, well, think about a restaurant, or they want to have you give you free samples of things. That's powerful. So I would absolutely, and I used to think this way too, believe me, with my sales coaching. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I, go give a talk for free, which I've done a lot of, even when the majority of my business was making money off of that. It did not hurt me one bit, because then what happened, Todd, is people would, at the end of the session, or they would email me and they'd say, wow, that was such great information. I want to hire you, or I want to talk to you about hiring you to talk about my specific needs or my company's specific needs. So I think that might help you. How do you feel about that, Todd?
That sounds good. I like that answer. It's very helpful.
So maybe make a list of 5 or 10 things for your specific business with your, where you're selling your time and your knowledge. I mean, look at yourself as though you're a doctor. I mean, you could go, you may have a friend that's a doctor, but they're not going to tell you everything they learned in medical school. And a doctor may give a talk about, joint problems, let's just say. An orthopedic surgeon gives a talk about, how to take better care of your knees or whatever. Well, he's not giving anything away, but then you're like, wow, if I ever know anybody that needs, that has problems with their knees, I'm sure going to talk to that person, because they, came out and gave a talk to, my baseball team or my son or daughter's softball or baseball team or whatever, about how to take care of yourself as an athlete, literally to avoid coming to me. I mean, as and so then that person gets their name out in the community that, wow, he or she as a surgeon is going out to football teams and baseball teams and all kinds of sports teams and talking about sports injuries and how to avoid them. Well, then you and everybody else in your community says, wow, that person is great. And so I think the same thing would hold true to you, for you, Todd. Do you agree with that?
I do. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Todd. And then I will go ahead and mute you. And it looks like we have another raised hand, so I'll allow that person to talk.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, Eddie. My name is Siri, and I also have a service-based business. I do like lifestyle and spiritual coaching, but I'm actually transitioning into launching and scaling my digital online course. And so I don't know if you can speak to that. So again, it's not a product-based business, and it is education, and not only just with the one-on-one coaching, which I totally agree with you. I think most successful people have coaches, but to do a digital course, I've hired a digital marketer, and I agree with you about knowing what you're good at and when you're not good at, and being able to, hire, people that are passionate about things that you're not passionate about and paying them. So my question to you is, he's creating like sales funnels, he's using video testimonials that I've collected over the years, or written testimonials and things like that, and pictures of clients to develop a sales page, but we're not going to have a real person selling. It's all going to be digital and online. And so do you have any shortcuts as far as psychology and as far as building trust with clients who may not necessarily have access to a real person, if that makes any sense, and everything is just done online? Do you have anything that you can add to that?
I'll try. I think that's so you're going to have this business online, but you are not going to communicate directly with any prospect or client. Is that correct?
Well, it's going to be done through the digital marketing campaign, and I'm the SME. So they would reach out to me if they have any questions about the course specifically. And that's what I have, like 25 to 40 people going through the course now. And they do, if they have any questions, they'll reach out to me. But I mean, again, not to toot my own horn, but I was an instructional designer. So a lot of people have told me it's one of the most robust online courses they've taken. So people generally don't have a lot of questions, but when they do, I'm very responsive and I respond. But there isn't going to be an actual salesperson. But I still think that what you shared still applies, like the psychology, the trust, of getting someone to, and we have like a money back guarantee, et cetera. So just wanted to just ask you in general, is there a shortcut to building trust besides getting reviews, online reviews and testimonials and things like that? Can you kind of speak to how a person that doesn't know you very well might be willing to try your product if you remove the risk of giving them a money back guarantee and things like that?
Okay, well, you're going to know who these, you said 25 to 40 people or something are taking your course now. Do you know their names and emails?
Yeah, so those are my existing clients from my one-on-one practice, but now we're scaling and we're
Right.
going to be, you know, advertising it on Instagram and Facebook and things like that. So what I'm asking you is, do you have any comments on, you know, everything you said about clients and everything like that? I concur because I've had my business with one-on-one coaching. But what I'm asking you is, can you speak to if there isn't that human sales element? Do you have any general sales tips for success for something that's more in the digital medium?
Okay, well, and that's what I was getting to is with the current clients, and I'm sure you know this, but is, you know, Google reviews and reviews that are on your website is that, and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but what was your name again?
Rena.
Rena. Okay. So if you have on your home page 10 people or more that you have one or two sentences that are on there that this course is fantastic, you know, and it's right there and hits people figuratively in the face when they are on your website. I mean, that is so powerful. I mean, you could talk about your business all day long. I could talk about my business all day long, but you know that when another person says two sentences about how great you are in your class, that goes miles versus us talking about ourselves. So I guess what I'm saying is I would reach out, I would suggest you personally reach out to anybody that has ever taken your course or is taking your course, because that will go a long way with trust. And they're going to be like, well, I took the course and the lady that, you know, I paid the money to, she actually called me. She sent me an email and wanted to, you know, set up a time to have a Zoom call or a talk. And just like I mentioned to Todd with the doctor going out in the community, it's kind of like you are now going out in the community. You're thanking people either face to face or on the phone or through Zoom for signing up for their call or signing up for your course, and asking how you can improve, asking them to take a minute and look at your website and any ideas that they may have. So I think if you get the reputation that not only are your courses great, but like I said, you are following up with each person that takes your course, that is just goes miles. It's kind of like going to a restaurant and you eat and, you know, the manager comes over and how was everything? And, you know, and you've eaten there a few times or whatever. And then they call you and say, you know, you've been a great customer. I want to give you a, you know, a free meal. Or you're like, oh my gosh, the manager or the owner of the restaurant, you know, thought enough of me to call me. So I don't know if that's giving you any good ideas or I'm on the wrong track.
Well, I mean, thank you so much, Eddie. We're already doing that. As I mentioned before, I have written testimonials and I have video testimonials, and we're creating videos, compiling different, like you said, because, you know, someone saying that your business is amazing is worth a lot more than you telling somebody that. No, I get that. But I mean, what I'm trying to understand is there a shortcut to building trust and in the sales psychology world? That's all I'm asking. Because like, you're right. If you keep following up with people and you have that one-on-one contact and everything you said during your presentation, but I'm just curious, did you learn any tips and tricks on how to increase, like shortcut that trust factor, or anything else that you could share with psychology that really helps kind of push people over the edge? Like my digital marketer told me to do the money back guarantee, because then you're removing risk of somebody feeling like, you know what I mean? It might not be good enough, but I can get my money back. Is there anything else that you can add to that? Just curious.
I'm struggling a little bit with this because and I'm not trying to be critical, but your business, if it's working, that's great, but you're not having the one-on-one contact like I did, where they're talking to you or emailing or communicating with you. They're simply seeing your website and either signing up for your course or not, and that's the end of it. It sounds like. Now, are there ongoing or further courses that they could take? And that's the thing I'm kind of struggling with, is because I don't know what you could put on a website, a homepage, to say, I'm trustworthy, unless you get other people to say that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think you're misunderstanding my business model. I have a one-on-one client practice where I have direct client access, just like you did. And I have an ongoing relationship with my clients. I have people writing testimonials and doing videos saying that I'm trustworthy. And it's going to be on the website. And if people have any questions, they're going to be able to email me directly and ask those questions. So there is contact. And then there's also, if they don't feel like they got the transformation they wanted, they actually have a money back guarantee as well. So we're doing all the right things. And we have a very robust business model that, again, I don't want to take up this entire session explaining it. But what I'm asking you is there anything else that you can add based on your robust life experience in sales?
Okay. And again, I apologize if I'm not doing a great job with this, but the only thing I would suggest is, you said that people can call you if they have questions. I would turn that around and you call them, if that makes sense. And you call each of these people, because you want to make sure that they are totally satisfied with everything service that you are providing for them. So would that be a possibility, that you initiate the call and just say to them, I want to do better for you. I want to continue with you. What can I do to improve? As opposed to waiting for them. Would that be a good idea for you, Renee?
Yeah, it would be more of a survey though. It would be more of a survey for the online clients. It would be more of a survey that we would provide to get feedback and input. And I think that's a great idea. So thank you so much.
Okay. And again, I'm sorry that I know I didn't quite, handle everything you wanted, but feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions or whatever. I'd be happy to talk to you.
I also wanted to let you know that on November 16th and December 14th, we have yet to make these go live. We will have an Ask the Expert webinar that will feature a Q&A that Eddy will be presenting and answering, and you can submit your questions in advance. Then he'll have a little bit of time to think about it and gather information or whatnot. So that will be something to keep an eye out for. As soon as those are live, I will email those to you and let you know in case you want to register for those. And Eddy, I don't see any other questions at this stage. So if you want to go ahead and move on with the next slide, we can do that, as we are starting to run out of time. I also wanted to
Did you want me to talk about the white paper on the cold calling or not?
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say. I just chatted through a handout for cold calling. And if you just wanted to say a couple of things about that, Eddy, feel free to. If you have any advice or tips that you might want to summarize real quick for us, that would be awesome.
Okay, yeah, real briefly, I learned over my careers in sales and then as coaching, is that cold calling is one of the hardest things for people to grasp, and it's very scary. So the short, you're going to get this all from Anna, but the main thing is if you're making a cold call, is all you want to do is meet the receptionist or the person you talk to. That's all you want to do. Get to know them, find out a little bit about the business, about who the person is at their business that would buy your service or product, and that's it. But you're all get that white paper, because cold calling is scary for 99% of even professional salespeople. So that's all.
Thanks so much, Eddy. And then additionally, we wanted to let you know that the New Mexico Small Business Development Center has 19 centers within New Mexico, including the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, an International Business Accelerator, and a Technology Commercialization Accelerator program. We're here to help you during any stage of your business with one-on-one counseling, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. We also have some resource partners, if you wouldn't mind proceeding to the next slide. Thank you so much. Such as SCORE, which Eddy is a part of, West, and Veterans Business Outreach Center, all of which are available to help you and your business. I will contact you via email with a copy of the presentation slides and additional information should you want to get a hold of us or sign up for any of our services. And with that being said, thank you so much, Eddy, as always, for all of your time and expertise. Is there anything in specific you would like to say to wrap things up?
Just, I want to thank everybody. And like I said at the very beginning, my only goal is that you take away one or two or more specific things that hopefully can help you in your business, or, at least get your brain thinking about, well, I need to learn more about this, and that you come back to SBDC or a friend or anybody else that because mentoring is so important. So that was my goal. And I hope all of you, felt this was worthwhile for you. I know I've been to a lot of sessions, through my life, talks where, it wasn't beneficial. And so I do my best to get, throw out things that hopefully will help you. So I hope that worked for all of you today.
Thank you so much, Eddy, and everyone else. Thank you for your attendance. Have a wonderful afternoon.